מה קורה נבות?
מה קורה אביב?
פרק in English.
וואו.
מעבר לאוקיינוסים, לים התיכון, לאטלנטי, ואז עוד יבשת שלמה. יש לנו אורחת מאוד מיוחדת היום, מעמק הסיליקון, אבל לפני שנתחיל, נספר לכם על נותנת החסות שלנו, אינטל איגנייט, תוכנית ההאצה של ענקית הטכנולוגיה. אינטל, שאחראית לאקזיטים הכי גדולים בישראל, איגנייט היא תוכנית בת 12 שבועות, שבה עוברים היזמים האצה משמעותית בתחומים כמו טכנולוגיה, מוצר, פרודקט, זה מוצר בעצם, בגישה לשוק. את התוכנית מובילים בכירים מאינטל ומתעשיית ההייטק הגלובלית, אנשים עם הצלחה מוכחת וניסיון עשיר באקוסיסטם של החדשנות והיזמות בישראל ובעולם. המטרה של התוכנית היא פשוט לאפשר לסטארט-אפים שנבחרים אליה גישה למיטב המוחות, התעשיות והטכנולוגיות, כדי לקדם את הרעיון שלהם לשלב הבא ולהביא אותם למסלול של הצלחה, וגם לענות מהעובדה עומדת מאחוריהם ענקית השבבים ועוד אינטל. אז אם אתם יזמים או חברת סטארט-אפ שהוקמה בשנים האחרונות וגייסה הון של מעל $1,000,000, אתם מוזמנים להגיש מועמדות. בימים האלה נפתחה הרשמה לתוכנית. פשוט תבקרו באתר www.intel.com/ignite, www.intel.com/ignite. בואו נתחיל.
Hello, good morning, great to meet you.
For us it's afternoon, but yes. We finally made it happen. We tried to make this episode go for a couple of months. We didn't succeed, and now it's finally here.
Mm-hmm.
It's been a very fun time. It's actually been a little bit of time since I've been to Tel Aviv, and hearing you speak, it made me want to get back there right now.
Have you been in Tel Aviv?
Yes, of course. One of the best cities. Right before the pandemic.
What made you come to Israel?
I came for just business meetings, met a few startups, and spent some time with some other VCs and the tech community there. I escaped my 3 small children, and that was the only reason I think I came home from Israel.
I see. And you told us before the recording that your husband speaks Hebrew? Is that true?
I think my husband should have done that introduction. I don't know. He would have been able to give you a run for your money on speaking. He's been working very hard, hiding from all of us and learning Hebrew on Duolingo.
How come? Why Hebrew?
He had a large team from his job in Tel Aviv, so he wanted to be able to hold some meetings and keep up his credibility.
And are you guys part of the tribe or are Jewish?
We are not. The rest, part of my family is, but we are not. But I admire it.
Elisabeth, good to hear.
Yeah.
Always good to hear. So tell us a bit about your background. You're an investor, right? You have a venture fund right now, Scribble, right? But what did you do before you became, joined the...
I came out to the Silicon Valley over 20 years ago now for Stanford for my undergrad and graduate education. I grew up in a small town in California called Sacramento, even a smaller town called Orangevale. And I was a big runner, a nerd. I was on Science Olympiad team for 6 years. I had the world's winning Rube Goldberg device of all things. So I've always liked to tinker, build things, and work with my hands, and then just really know how things work. So I am an ultramarathon runner and triathlete, and started running when I was 9 years old. And actually the story of how I discovered Stanford University, I ran a cross-country meet on the campus when I was in high school. And I thought, wow, this place is beautiful. It looks like a pretty nice school. And I applied to Stanford, and the rest is history. So I did my undergraduate there in economics. I did my master's in engineering and was really pulled into a program called the Mayfield Fellows Program that takes 10 engineering students a year and really trains them almost like a mini business school education. So learning about startups, the technology community, venture law, what it takes to be an executive venture capital. And I worked at 2 startups through the end of school and absolutely had a blast. Loved realizing you could be a young person, build a lot of systems in place in an early company, wear a lot of hats, and I had so much fun doing that. So when it was time to graduate and take my first real job, I was recruited by a firm on Sand Hill Road, a venture capital firm called Menlo Ventures, and started my career there for 3 years. I learned what it took to invest.
It's one of the bigger VCs.
It's a great one. And learned from some of the finest on really what makes a venture-backed company, what makes a good startup, and got to watch some grow. And from there, I went to Institutional Venture Partners, IVP, a late-stage venture fund across the parking lot on Sand Hill Road, and learned the later stage game. And actually, my story really started there. My husband and I were already married at the time. He'd done his undergrad in physics at Harvard and came out for his PhD in particle physics, I do believe, at Stanford. And we met on the triathlon team, fortunately. But I made, and our team at IVP made an investment in a little company called Twitter. And Twitter was about 30 people at the time. And my husband, Kevin, was getting a little bored at what he was working on. So I said, hey, you should go over and take a look at this little company, Twitter. They needed somebody to start their analytics team. So Kevin Wheel, my husband, went over and started at Twitter when it was about 30 people, ultimately stayed for about 7 years, most of which was running the product team. And about 6 months after he started in 2009, I realized how much fun he was having. And I said, I've got to get to this place. So I quit my job. I started the corporate development and biz dev, biz ops teams, those functions at Twitter when it was about 50 people small, and stayed for 4 years through hypergrowth from 50 people to 2,500, just shy of 4 years. So after my time...
What made you quit?
So what made me quit at Twitter? A hard decision because I was having so much fun building, but was recruited by a small firm at the time called Andreessen Horowitz, and they were starting a team called Market Development. And that was really when business services were getting woven into venture capital firms in a really new way. And my team was called Market Dev, and the function was connecting the Fortune 500, Global 2000 businesses with our portfolio companies. And the end goal was business development relationships and ultimately revenue. So our startups were loving the fact that they could meet these executive teams at larger companies and end up with pilots and early revenue on some great brands to show on their progress slides. And the Fortune 500 were loving the motion because they would have never known about a really neat analytics product or a technology that could help push their business forward. So I ran that team and scaled it to about 35 people over 4 years. And it was such a fun time. But I really missed the investing piece of venture capital. And fortunately, my husband, Kevin, and I were able to angel invest for those 6, 7, 8 years throughout. But we built a pretty large portfolio with personal capital. And at that point, I picked my head up and I said, oh my goodness, I have 3 small children. I have 4-year-old twins and a 6-year-old now. So they were very small then. And I said, they would never go to college if we continued to angel invest at that clip. The start of COVID, I picked my head up after taking another role first at a firm called 137 Ventures and learning the structured secondary side of the world. And there I just realized I loved working with our small companies and these portfolio founders or these company founders and really helping them grow and succeed. And at the height of COVID, the very start, I picked my head up and said, what do I love doing? What am I armed best to do? And that really was working with early stage companies to build their businesses. So Scribble Ventures focuses on seed opportunistic A startups. We're roughly a $50 million fund and have been investing since we kicked off our first fundraise, and really have been having a lot of fun writing a collaborative size check into these rounds, typically a $300 to $1 million check. And we like to say we play well with others. So we bring in other great entrepreneurs and angel investors, other firms. We are brought into amazing opportunities by those people as well. And it's just been a really fun motion to help our CEOs and founding teams build these little companies.
One part of your career that you didn't mention is your work with Lego.
When I was a kid. Oh, wow.
Fun story for you. So my COVID guilty pleasure, and quite an expensive habit, I must say, I've been building all of the hard to find buildings that make up the town center. So I've done the Assembly Square, the corner garage, the diner, what else? The bookstore. And I've enjoyed building these small, I'm working on the diner even as we speak. The ground floor is built, but I'm still working on floors 2 and 3. So in my office, where you're getting a little glimpse, but I will describe it, I'm sitting at my desk. I kicked my husband out of our tiny small office, and the second desk is my Lego desk. So I keep all the time a Lego set going there. So when I need a break from my meetings, I hop to the other chair and I build my Legos.
But that's not what you've done with Lego,
No.
right? You were an investor from Lego's corporate venture capital?
Correct. So fun story there, and actually weaving back to my Andreessen Horowitz time. I was really fortunate to spend some time when the Denmark group got a lot of their Denmark and Danish entrepreneurs out in Silicon Valley. And I went to a cocktail function there and met the CEO of Lego. And this was about almost a decade ago now. And last year, I really reached out and said, hey, I have a 3-year-old. I'm realizing how much fun we're having building Legos together. Thanks for building a company that really makes me proud. I had no asks in the email. It was purely to say hello. And he responded and said, hey, I have an idea for you. I remember you. He said, we need somebody to start the Americas for Lego Ventures in the Silicon Valley. And the rest is history. I took on a role there to build out a small team in San Francisco, California. And I got to spend time last year at Lego headquarters in Billund as well, and really admire the company. And what an amazing story of being still a private business and such a neat, unique company.
So what kind of investment does Lego seek? What, like smart plastic for like the what?
Oh, they are more than smart plastic. So I really realized we invested in education technology companies, things that would not just be the future of the plastic brick, we said, and really built a neat small portfolio, taking that ed tech approach and really looking at other ways that could help the Lego business further into the new areas of play.
And Lego is a very known brand worldwide, but they haven't done any investments in Israel.
I actually do not know because I looked after the Americas. That's a great question. I'm sure there's some fun technologies that would plug in.
So Elisabeth, what made you interview to an Israeli podcast, even though we're like an amazing podcast and everybody listens to us, even in Silicon Valley, but usually...
Actually, a fun story there too, and it always connects back to great people. But at the start of Scribble, of course, I didn't think any great venture capital firm could be born without a great name. And a year ago, today actually, I woke up in the middle of the night I had the idea for the word scribble. And I wrote it down next to my bed, and I looked up Scribble Ventures, Scribble Capital, Scribble anything the next morning. And sure enough, there had not been a venture capital firm named Scribble. And for me, I had the epiphany right then and there that Scribble Ventures, it was perfect, that every idea starts with a scribble. And I had this vivid story in my mind of how to create a brand that really told the early stage founding of the company story. And at that point, I reached out to a great friend and I said, I need a website. I need something to show that this is taking place. And a friend of mine who's from Tel Aviv actually said to me, you must meet Omer. And Omer, I said, who is this famous Omer? And she said, Omer can do anything. And I met Omer, and he has a small and growing design studio. He absolutely took on the Scribble product with gusto, and and his team really helped us build. And when he learned about the Scribble journey and the story through his time building our website, he said, oh, you must meet these guys. They have this incredible podcast. Would you like to meet them and go on? And I said, of course, yes. Omer does nothing to steer me wrong. So that's how I ended up with you this afternoon.
Fantastic. And does that mean that you're also looking for investments here in Israel or only in Silicon Valley?
We like to say that we are location agnostic, and that's for two reasons. One, I wanted to build a firm that could take a broader purview and be geographically diversified. The second thing I would say is something that we've all realized, especially over this last year, that amazing companies can be built anywhere. And you might have some talent and entrepreneurs in a different country. You might have some back in the States, that these teams can be distributed, well-functioning, and fast growth. And I would not want Scribble Ventures to miss an opportunity because we were taking a myopic approach of only investing in the Silicon Valley.
And your partner, one of your partners is your husband, right?
Correct.
Kevin is also operating partner at the fund.
How is it working with your husband when you're stuck at home?
Interesting story. It's actually been quite great overall. So building a company, as the founders and entrepreneurs out there know, is a lonely job. And when Kevin and I were really working on our angel portfolio together, we realized we were finding these incredible opportunities, not because we were necessarily seeking them out, but because we had such a different, diverse, and great networks built. And great opportunities in startup companies were making their way to our interests. We're both huge athletes. They were making our way to our technology interests. Kevin's an amazing product leader, has scaled and founded a number of companies, and really has unique interests that are far different from mine. I collect other types of people and entrepreneurs. So we were building this portfolio in a way that really made us proud. And at the start of Scribble, Kevin loves operating, and the intention was to let him do that for his entire career. So Kevin is our operator in residence. As I told you earlier, I had to kick him out of the office. That was probably the best COVID move I made. So Kevin now works down the hall, which is very nice, in our guest room. But working with him has both been empowering. It's been fun to fight about business things, not just kids and marriage, of course, and really have a partner that can wear different hats than myself and help tackle the business. And it's been fun to see that the person I married also can help build a really great company. And then I wanted the team to be set up for success into the future as well. So hired a woman that I've known for 8 years. She started her career in Silicon Valley at Barclays, was a Yale athlete, an 800 runner. And then I met her actually on a spin bike, turned her into my running partner. So for 8 years, we joke that we've been on the longest job interview. And she spent 4 years at Dropbox in the early days. And then for the last 4 has been at a Silicon Valley venture capital firm. So I recruited her to my team as a partner, and she is off to the races as well.
So you're 2 female investment partners, right?
Correct. And Kevin are able to invest, but our operator in residence. So our team of 3, our mighty team.
So I don't know how rare it is in the US, but in Israel, I don't think there is a VC.
There is one, I think.
Really?
iAngel.
iAngel, right.
Yeah.
There's only one VC in Israel that is led by a woman and
2 women.
Yeah, 2 women, and it's only a woman.
Yeah, Elisabeth.
What's going on?
Yeah.
And is it in the US right now, in the Silicon Valley, to see a woman as a VC and investors?
Yeah, two women leading VCs.
Good question. It has been an initiative that has been really focused on here over the last few years, because as probably 2 years ago especially, the numbers were staggering. How few venture capital firms were not only including women as investors, but promoting women as investors. And the huge hole was that the decision makers at venture capital firms with check writing ability and investment responsibilities were not female. And I've actually been a part of a group here in the Silicon Valley called All Raise. And All Raise is a group of women venture capitalists that really set out to help change that and add more women to the decision-making roles within great venture firms, have more women on the cap table, and really create this muscle for other amazing women VCs. That said, there are few venture capital firms that are exclusively run by female talent. And I had the opportunity to go to some existing standalone companies or venture capital firms and as an investor, but I really wanted to build a company that makes me proud. And Scribble Ventures, I envisioned being led by a female and having an early female team from the beginning. And that said, we don't focus on female-led businesses necessarily. We don't talk about our gender, but I think it's a real advantage and something we wanted to compete on the venture capital stage and not look at that as any handicap. So we're starting from there.
Mm-hmm. In what sense do you think it's something that is better, the point of view or?
Yes, I think everything needs diversity. And that said, it's not just gender diversity, but I think we ask different questions than the typical set that other VCs look at. I think, and we all know, we have different habits, both as consumers, and consumers not just in the idea of e-commerce companies, but the way we consume news, material, technology, how we interact with things. So we say that Scribble Ventures is an intentionally generalist firm, but we stick to what we know. We love enterprise, infrastructure technology, security, fintech, health tech, new e-com solutions. We're looking even in some of the eco spaces that are changing with technology now. So I think being a well-armed citizen doesn't matter your gender, but having some different perspectives. So when we're zeroing in on an opportunity, even if we're really liking something and liking the founders and the story, who else on the team will help ask those tough questions because they have a different perspective in the world?
So you've been a whole year at your house, right? Working from your house. What happened to Silicon Valley in the past year? Because we've met a lot of people who are leaving Silicon Valley because everything is so expensive. People, Israelis that come back to Israel, what's the situation over there?
Yes. Despite what you hear, it does not feel empty at all. And our roads and traffic still shows it quite full. I think a lot of things did happen, but I think people were unbundled from this mentality of I need my work and life and my startup to be built in the hotbed of Silicon Valley. I think we've realized that the tools are being put in place and continuing to be built in the future of workspace that we love investing in as well, that teams can be everywhere. We've invested in some companies that have been entirely remote teams for years, and that was an anomaly years ago. And now this is so much of the norm, and great talent can be anywhere. And given the choice of raising a family with more space, with less of a cost of living, and access to family in some cases, I'm really able to build a business or do the work via the technology that we've armed ourselves with. It's really made and enabled people to go back to any place they like to spend their time. And one of the things that a lot of folks ask me about when you're switching jobs or how have I chosen the steps of my career? And I always have three things I've looked at. And for me, they fall in a ranked order for what's important to me. And one was always the people I work with and surround myself with. Number two was location, actually. And number three was, am I learning? And any time that my learning curve is flattened, that's usually a time I start getting antsy and think of making a change. And that number two as location was something that I realized was important to me because, like I mentioned, I'm an early morning runner. I'm a mom now. I'm a wife. I'm a homeowner. I'm an executive. I'm a technologist. I'm a friend. And there's not enough hours in the day. And I didn't want to be doing a 2+ hour commute every day to work at a place that I needed to be. And I believed in weaving life and work together. It's been a way that I've built a really strong network, in my opinion. It's been the way I've found incredible investments because you're inquisitive. You talk to other people that you just come in contact with. And I think COVID has opened our eyes to realizing that location doesn't necessarily matter in the way that we had prioritized it. And we can do so much more in our lives and really grow great families and businesses and teams anywhere. And geographic diversity is something that I think has been a major advantage. And even at the cost of San Francisco having a little more vacancy in apartments these days, which I do not think is a bad thing. But I don't think it's it that the energy is leaving this area at all.
We're almost done. We're 30 minutes or less podcast, and we have a lot of Israeli entrepreneurs, even early stage entrepreneurs. What do they need to know before they reach out to you? What's the single most important thing? And how can they reach out to you if they think that Scribble Ventures are the right partner for them to work with?
Great. I always like opportunities coming through a warm introduction. I think that always helps. The harder you work to find some loose connection, I think that is a big advantage first. Second, we are investing in, like I mentioned, seed, opportunistic A type of opportunities. One of the things we really want to see, even in those early stages, is what's your secret? What is arming you with the ability to be the person or the team on the planet to take this idea and turn it into a large scalable company? We want to be able to envision any company that we invest in returning our $50 million fund. We want to see that type of opportunity and that type of big swing. Early proof points that can show, even if it's not necessarily revenue as an indicator of early success, what is a key metric that is showing that you're seeing some early product market fit and traction to really start creating a flywheel that will start to grow and succeed. And we acknowledge that there's so many unknowns at the startup size and journey at that stage. But what are those key things that can show you're set up for success? And we loved taking a look at deep technology. And you could send an email to hello@scribble.vc. That gets to us. And we really do to look at things with great teams, tackling big ideas. And we want to help turn your scribbles into reality.
Amazing. Thank you, Elizabeth, for coming up so early and making it happen. I'm sure that our Israeli audience will enjoy it, and hopefully some of your friends in the Valley.
Yeah.
Fantastic, and I can't wait to get back there. Somebody get me on a plane and get me back to Tel Aviv sooner than later.
Absolutely. Same here. We miss flying and meeting people face. Thanks so much, and have a great morning.
Just one second. When we finish the podcast, don't hang up the call because we need to upload the file.
All right.
Now we're switching back to Hebrew.
אוקיי, זו הייתה בריאות, דאטה, אות וגם גישה למשקיעים לכתובת הזו, www.intel.com/ignite, www.intel.com/ignite, IGNITE.
הפרק הזה בספוטיפיי בקלקליזם, מישהו ביקש פרקים. So thank you, Elizabeth, again. Hopefully we'll see you in Israel.
I would love that.